Welcome to Rhyme and Reason, hosted by Dr. Barry. Today, Barry welcomes
NFL alum Louis Oliver.
And now, here's Dr. Barry Ryman.
Hey, Jason.
What's up,
I got Mr. Cabello on with me. Before the show gets started, I want to give him a quick shout out. Yesterday, he celebrated 6 continuous years of sobriety. Miracle. That's awesome, man. What do you have to say for yourself? Anything good?
Yeah, 6 years of continuous clean time, as I like to say, but you know, it's all nomenclature. It's you know, you've known me since probably before I actually got clean,
Yeah.
just from going to meetings and around in Broward County. So you know, it took me a long time. It took me 7 years of trying to get clean, but not really wanting to get clean, wanting to do things my own way, wanting to get just one more. So I was like going to meetings and in and out of treatment for 7 years, and then went to Recovery Unplugged and just said, hey, you know, let me give this an honest chance. And that's all I did, was like accepted the help, gave it an honest chance, and said, and you know what the real reason was like, I'm going to show you guys that this isn't going to work for me. I'm going to give it my all, and then you guys are going to see that it's just something that I can't do. And then little by slowly, you know, it 6 years happened. So
Way to go, man. We're proud of you. Your family is proud of you. Your family is thankful that you've done this. Your anybody in your life, because anyone who knew you before, you're in a much better place than you were 6 years ago. We're actually under a time crunch because our guest can only be on for about 30 minutes today. So I want to hop right into this. You and I are going to have plenty of time after Louis
that's right.
departs, you know, to kind of shoot the shit a little bit. I'm really excited about today. If you've been following this podcast now, you already know that I'm a big sports fan. I am a diehard Miami Dolphin fan. I was born in Miami. I was raised here. I've been watching the Dolphins. So I was born in 75. I'd say I've been following the Dolphins since the early 80s, have been a season ticket holder since 1996, but went to tons of games before that. And today's guest, number 25, Louis Oliver, is one of those Dolphins that have always stuck out in my head because of the energy he brought to our defense. I mean, songs would come on at the stadium and he'd be out there and he'd be dancing on the field. And they had such a really strong defensive unit that it really got the fans into it, right? And at the end of the day, football is football, but we got to give a shout out to the fans, because without the fans, the players don't play so hard. The game isn't as exciting. And Louis really knew how to raise the roof at the old Joe Robbie Stadium. Okay.
And his touchdown dances were epic.
They were epic. So, you know, Louis is not only a former Miami Dolphin player, but he is and has been a part of my alma mater, the Florida Gators. He was a first-round draft pick back in 1989. He played a total of 7 seasons for the Dolphins. He is currently the creator and founder of Highlightz and works within the cannabis industry. And we are open to learning about all different things on this podcast. And yes, we talk recovery, but as we know today, medical marijuana is intertwined somewhat with recovery. So with that being said, let's bring on Mr. number 25, the dancing Louis Oliver.
What's up, Barry? What's up, Jason?
Louis.
Listen, I hope that was quite the introduction.
Yo, I felt like I was winning an Oscar or a Grammy with that intro.
Yeah, he's going for it.
Listen. All right, I grew up on Miami, okay, and I was one of those fans in the stands doing this, right? Every time you were out there dancing, and it was you who started dancing on the field that got all your teammates dancing with you. And I'm sure you remember that, but these are the little things that stuck with me, you know, as a 20-something-year-old or a 15-year-old or however old I was when you played.
It's so funny you say that because I can recall when I first got here from Florida, and going into a game preseason or regular season, it was so quiet. They didn't play music the way they do now. And I would always go to our media people and say, "Hey, why don't we have some music like a club before the game starts?" And they were like, "Nah, Lewis, we cannot do that." And now you go to the game, it's like being at Club Live.
Yeah.
It's true. So, Greg, who's backstage, I want to roll a highlight. Just so you're aware, Lewis Oliver is the NFL record holder for the Miami Dolphins for the longest interception return for a touchdown in Miami Dolphins history. Here's a little look back in the early 90s when we were playing in Buffalo.
Intercepted. It is Lewis Oliver again. Does he have a touchdown? Kelly can't get
I'm
him.
still tired from that one.
He could go all the way.
Let's see that dance.
Where's that dance?
There we go.
There it is. Oh, there's the dance. Yeah.
Oh yeah. You know the song.
Thurman Thomas.
Oh, there's Richmond Webb, one of my buddies.
Jim Kelly stuck with him. You'll see Thomas running the motion. And now
Very.
excuse
You
me,
know what's so
this is
funny
a-
about this game? Before this game, I told my coach, I woke up that morning because I had dreamt the night prior that I had 3 interceptions and I had a touchdown. And I woke up the next day and I told Coach Phillips, I said, "Coach, I dreamt last night I had 3 interceptions, 1 for a touchdown." And he said, "We're going to need all of those interceptions you had in your dream if we're going to win today."
Are you kidding me?
Manifest destiny.
I swear to God, I woke up, I said, "Mel," at our pregame meal, I said, "Mel, I'm going to have 3 interceptions today. I dreamt it last night."
I mean, and just for our listeners who aren't aware and aren't a sick Dolphin fan the way I am, you fucking had 3 interceptions and a touchdown on the road in Buffalo against Jim Kelly.
October 4th, 1992.
I remember.
Oh.
I
That's my
remember.
birthday. Thank you.
Happy birthday, Jason.
So, all right. So, my fanboying is over. I did see my buddy on the field with you, number 78, Mr. Richmond Webb.
Oh yeah,
He was
great.
Yeah,
Dolphin
he was the
dude.
man. He's a really good dude. So can you tell me, and I don't know, I haven't talked to you too much about what Recovery Unplugged is, but we are an actual music-based drug and alcohol treatment center. So one of our founders was a touring member with the band Aerosmith. We use music as a catalyst to connect. So we talk a lot about music on here. Recently, over the last couple of years, cannabis has been introduced into the realm of addiction treatment. You know, and it's a hot topic. Okay. We're not going to shy away from that. I don't have one opinion or another. I will tell you that in a week and a half from now, I'm celebrating 26 years clean. But I will tell you that weed was my first love. Okay. And when I tell you it was my first love, I used to wake and bake and fire and retire every single day. I mean, that no matter what other substances I was using, weed was the one constant. And to this day, all these decades later, I would love to come home at times and hit a bong. Okay. I don't know if they use bongs anymore. When I was at UF, I lived in Oxford Manor, and we had stairs, you know, that were inside the apartment, and we had this 6-foot extension that used to attach to our 3-foot bong. So we were taking 9-foot bong hits from the top of the stairs. You know, back then we had Crippy, which was like better weed than the regs, you know, the stuff that had all the seeds in it and stuff. But it was nowhere near to the weed or the medicinal marijuana that's out there today, right? The THC content in Crippy was probably about 10%. And we were faced, right? We were faced.
Right.
So if you could talk a little bit about, you know, your history outside of football, kind of what got you into doing what you're doing, and a little bit about Highlightz. You know, we want to highlight you on here so you can kind of spread the message of what you're up to.
Well, I mean, being that you alluded to music, you guys are music based first. Um, when I got to Miami, the entertainment scene was nothing like it is right now. I mean, South Beach wasn't what it was. Wynwood, downtown Brickell, none of those places really had anything going. So I started my own. I started doing my own events and creating my own parties, and became known for that as well as being a Miami Dolphins football player. So music has always been a part of my life and what I do and what I enjoy. So I started my own entertainment company which I've been running since 1991, 92. Right now, I probably do the hottest party in the United States, and that's not bragging, which is Live on Sunday at the Fountain Blue Hotel in Miami Beach. Been doing that party now for 13 years, which is probably the biggest, highest grossing party in the United States. And outside of that, I started my journey into cannabis once I retired. Right after I got diagnosed, I had to do hip replacement. So right prior to my hip replacement, I was taking a whole lot of Advil, whole lot of Tylenol, and then I went to my doctor, Dr. Finland, who was also at that time had just retired. He was the Dolphins head team physician. And I told him, I said, hey, Doc, I want to stop taking all of these pain pills and opioids. And he said, hey, Lewis, why don't you try cannabis? And I was like, Doc, are you serious? He was like, yeah. I was like, okay, I'm going to try it. And my life has been, absolutely amazing since that point, because the pain that I had from the hip prior to surgery was totally unbearable. Nights of sleep would be maybe 1 or 2 hours, if that. But since that and cannabis has really, since I started taking the cannabis, I could sleep through the night. And prior to my surgery and even post surgery now, every night before I go to bed, I'm gonna hit me one on the balcony and shut it down and sleep like a baby.
So I'm glad you're bringing this up. A few weeks ago, we had a buddy of mine on the show who's also a former NFL player. He played for 10 years for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, was drafted in 1983. His name's Randy Grimes.
Mm-hmm.
And Randy Grimes was a center. And, on that offensive line, you get beaten up, right?
Yep,
and so he talked about how, you walk in the locker room and there was just essentially just a pharmacy, and you would just open a cabinet and take whatever pills you needed. And for somebody with his gene makeup, right, he has that gene of addiction. Doing that for him really messed him up. Okay. And cannabis, on the other hand, obviously is not and has not been approved to use as an athlete within, they do drug testing. And so it only made sense that you had to try the cannabis at that point, right? Because you didn't want to risk your career by coming up dirty on a drug test. Where do you think the future, and I'm just kind of going off the hip, and Jason, you could chime in too, but where do you think the future of cannabis goes when it comes to professional sports? Is this something now that is going to start to be accepted? I know Ricky Williams is a big advocate and very outspoken when it comes to marijuana. Where do you think this is going in the future?
I mean, this is already here. I mean, now all 32 teams, all the owners, they've come up with the policy now. They don't even test the guys nowadays for marijuana. That is a welcome change. That my thing, Barry, is cannabis is a plant. It's not a drug. You don't treat drugs with drugs. So if the league has said, hey, it's okay, especially from an NFL standpoint, I feel like all the sports leagues are gonna follow the NFL and allow their players to use cannabis, knowing that it has tremendous medical benefits. I don't see it as a drug. Like I told my doctor one time, I said, look, hey, as far as I'm concerned, drugs are made in laboratories, and I haven't seen anybody create a plant from out of thin air the way God has. So for me, I feel as though I'm smoking God's plant, and that's all. To me, in my mindset, and I'm sure a lot of other people, they feel like it's just a plant. And once the NFL got behind it and allowed these players to use cannabis to treat a lot of their ailments and their injuries, I just feel as though all the other industries are going to follow suit.
Yeah, because I mean the medical benefits are you can't argue with the facts of what it does for people. I have one of my best friends. He had died of brain cancer, but before that, when he was going through all of his chemo and radiation, the only thing that would help him eat was the Marinol pills. You know what I mean? Like he couldn't keep anything down no matter what they gave him, and that was the only thing that helped him. And I got to see that firsthand. And, this was maybe about 12 years ago. So it was a little bit before it started, the legalization happened anywhere. So do you have any part in in spearheading any legalization movements or anything, Lewis?
No, not in part of that. I mean, I enjoyed the plant myself. I just see, I see no wrong with it. I see no wrong with it. Some people call it a gateway drug. I don't see it as a drug, period. I see it as being very beneficial. So for me, getting off the opioids, being able to function and with use of the plant, I'm all for it, and I'm a big advocate for it.
Yeah, and I think the studies show that if there is such thing as a gateway drug, that it's definitely more alcohol to anything else than would be, than marijuana. That's just something that was stigmatized in the Reagan years.
Exactly.
I mean, that's all great points, and I'm just kind of thinking out loud right now, and I would think I'm a representative of, let's just call it, the recovery community, and just so you're aware, Lewis, like for decades and decades now, when we talk about the 12 steps, NA meetings, AA meetings, it's been about total abstinence. Okay, it's been about you're clean or you're not. And then over the last number of years, we'll call it the last 10 years or so, a drug called Suboxone was introduced. And Suboxone's been around a lot longer, but it's kind of gained momentum in the treatment of people who become opioid dependent. So if they're on heroin every day, they start taking this Suboxone strip, and it keeps them from getting sick. But Suboxone in itself is an opioid, right? So it's kind of, they call it medically assisted treatment, or MAT. Now, we're looking now at weed, and just to go back to your point that it's a plant, and this is not for argument's sake, because I agree with you, it's a plant. But going back to what I said at the beginning of the show, the THC content in some of the stuff that they're making today is off the charts. It's 90%. They have this stuff called shatter and glass and all this stuff. I'm not 100% familiar with this stuff. I'm telling you, if they still had that stuff, I'd still be high from 26 years ago. So, where do we, as a recovery community, how do we come around to the concept that it's just a plant scenario? I don't know, Jason, too, if you have any thoughts behind this, but it's the levels of THC. Some of these, some of this medicine really fucks you up. Okay. Like, yeah, it's one thing, you had hip issues, and I'm so happy, man, that I'd much rather you be doing what you're doing than stuck on painkillers for the rest of your life. Right. But where do we draw the line for somebody who struggles and has a history of abuse, which you didn't, but somebody who has a history of abuse? When does it become okay for them to try this method? And this is controversial, but I'm just kind of putting that out there. And Lewis, I don't know if you have any thoughts, or Jason.
Well, for me, like, I don't know what shatter. For me, I only do flower. I don't do edibles. I don't do dabs. I just do strictly flower, and because I know what's in flower, just the flower. I don't know what shatter is. I don't know when they start waxing and all of that stuff, what other ingredients or what other substances they got to put in to make this thing, to make it a wax, or to make it a gel, or to make it a powder. I know what's in the plant flower itself, the plant itself. So for me, I'm only a user of the cannabis flower. Now, shatter and all that other stuff, I don't even know. But and I can say, and thank God, like I don't really have an addictive personality. Like I feel as though I can pretty much have mind control over anything that I want to do with my mind, my body, my spirit. So for me, I'm a one person. I'm not a all day smoker. I'm a one joint hitter a night, and then I'm asleep. And then I wake up the next day, work out, take the kids to school, handle my business, and then I'm waiting on the next night to come. So that for me, that's my routine. I can't say I'm not here to tell people who've been on the other side of addiction how beneficial the plan is. They would have to make that decision themselves. But for me, the choice was once I started taking cannabis as opposed to using the opioids, my body felt better, my mindset was better, my health was better, the pain relief was instant, and it lasted a much longer time than the opioid. So for me, it was different. I mean, for somebody who may be in a different situation, I'm not here to say take it versus not taking it. They would have to do what's best for them.
Yeah, so 1/3 of this panel does not have addiction problems. So it's like, so people.
Hey, listen, I'm like Jason. I'm listening to him, and I'm like,
that sounds great, right? To be able to.
And I'm not that person. And Lewis, I applaud you without judgment. Okay, because there are recreational users, right? There were people that I knew that could buy a gram of cocaine on New Year's, invite 3 of their friends over, do coke all night, and still have a half a gram, and they'd put it in their drawer of their desk and not take it out until next New Year's, okay? The thought of, and this just reconfirms where my head's at, the thought of going all day, doing all things, being responsible, taking care of my kids, going to work, and then just having that one joint at night, I would literally have a timer on my phone and check it every 4 minutes, okay, with the countdown until it was time for me to hit that balcony and hit that joint. So there is, for the listeners that are out here that have a history of substance use disorder, let's not get this twisted. I can't do what you do. I would really fucking want to do what you do, okay? When I got clean, it wasn't about being brainwashed that I didn't like drugs or what they did to me. When I got clean, it was about how my life can change for the better if I give up that one thing that's really destroying my life because of the way I abused it. Okay, so being clean is not about convincing you that we don't like to get high. All of us like to get high. It feels good. Jason, I don't know what your thoughts are, but I don't know if you were thinking the same thing. But I would love to just smoke one a day.
Yeah,
but Barry,
yeah.
When I started using it, I wasn't using cannabis to get high. I get it. I was using it for pain relief. So for me, it was never about how high can I get. It was about how can I get rid of this pain. And
100%.
so outside of that, I wasn't looking for anything stronger because I wasn't chasing the high. I was chasing pain relief. You know, so I was never looking to see how high can I get. That was never what I was searching for. I was trying to figure out how the fuck can I get rid of this pain and how long can I keep this pain away from me. So for me, cannabis was enough. Like I have friends and who've taken even more potent drugs, and I was like, yo, like what is it? Like how high do you want to be? So for me, when I take a joint, I hit a joint. Although I'm in the stratosphere, that's good for me. I don't want to get any higher than that.
That's the level you want to stay at. Yeah. See, for me, anything a sip of wine, a hit of weed, I'll be in Overtown in 10 minutes trying to chase down whatever I can get, man. Like
I'm thinking out loud, Jason. I mean, and that's what medicinal marijuana is for. Exactly what you're talking about, Lewis. Okay. I'm telling you, just listening to you, my head is going, oh, my neck is really starting to hurt, and my knee is sore, and I got herniated discs in my back. I just got an epidural that worked, but I'm sure that's not going to last forever.
Right.
And we can manufacture the pain, to continue doing what we're doing. Listen, you have to jump off in about 5 minutes.
But I want to come back, Barry. I want to come back.
We got you, man. Anytime. You could be a friend of the show. So I want to know a little bit about your company that you have now. If you want to share with the audience, I know this is something that you've put your heart and soul into, and then we're going to talk about how I can get into Live on a Sunday.
All right. Well, 8 years ago, sitting at Live at one of my parties one night, I'm sitting there, and I see at night, and I forgot who we had hosting that night, but it was a big party, and I'm looking around the nightclub, and all I see are people with their phones taking pictures of themselves and taking pictures of whatever they see inside the club. So I'm sitting there smoking a joint, and I go home and I say to myself, what if I was smoking that joint, and when I inhale it, my whole persona just lights up. So I'm sitting at home, and the idea just hit me about maybe creating a product that lights up when you inhale. So I go to this company called Prototype House, sit down with my guy Matt Barty at Prototype House. I ask him, I say, hey, can you draw this up? Because this is what I want to do. I want this product that when you put a cigarette, a joint, a blunt, a spliff, whatever you put in there, a cigar, it lights up. And we start sketching things out. We put that into motion, and fast forward 8 years later, February 2nd of 2022, 8:20 a.m., my attorney called me, our patent attorney called me, Mark Johnson. He said, hey, are you sitting down? And I said, why? He said, you need to sit down. I said, what's up, Mark? He said, hey, Lewis, that patent that we've been trying to get, you were just awarded a design patent and a utility patent for your product. And I just fell out into tears for about a whole hour. I must have cried straight for an hour straight. And my product is called Highlightz, HIGHLIGHTZ. And what highlights are illuminating inhalation smoking tips. So you put a cigarette in there, a joint, blunt, spliff, cigar, and when you inhale it, it lights up, it illuminates, it shines, it's razzle dazzle. And I really built it just for a brighter, more heightened, more enlightened smoking experience. So I built it for nightclubs and music festivals and yada yada yada, and now it's out there and we're starting to market it, and sales are going pretty nicely. So just trying to scale it and see where it goes.
So you getting support out there from any big names? Have you started to see people's face lights up at Live? What does that look like?
I mean, it's looking good. I mean, we've been doing a lot of content shooting now. I know I'm supposed to be having a meeting sometimes in the near future with a big name. I'm not even going to throw his name out there in the cannabis industry, but I will say the brand. He's associated with the Cookies brand, so hopefully things work out, and we're gonna see where it goes from that point.
That's amazing, man. Go
Well,
ahead, Jay.
I'll offer my services. If you need any content creation, you could contact me through Dr. Barry Lewis. I know what I'm doing with the camera.
I appreciate that, Jason. Appreciate it.
You have no idea. He's the man. So to our listeners, Mr. Lewis Oliver, his son is graduating 8th grade today. And he's in the car, getting ready to go into a graduation. So we are going to let him dip. Hopefully we can welcome him back on another day. Okay. But, you've been awesome. Again, bow down. You are the man. Hard hitting safety, number 25 Gators. For the Miami Dolphins, Florida Gators. And a little story of hope real quick. And if you don't think your dreams are possible, Lewis went to the University of Florida in Gainesville and was a walk-on to the team. Yeah. And let me just see something real quick. Not only was he a walk-on, but he wound up, earning an athletic scholarship, became the starting free safety and team captain, and totaled 11 career interceptions. He was first-team All-Southeastern Conference selection in 87 and 88, and first-team All-American in 87, and a consensus first-team All-American in 88. two-time SEC academic honor roll honoree. And let's talk about that for 2 seconds, okay? I'm sorry. I'm going to keep you to 12:31.
That's okay. That's okay.
I asked him about his son before we started the show, and, his son's going into high school, and I asked him if he plays football, and he said, yes, Dr. Barry, he plays football, but what I'm most proud of is the student he is. Yes. And the grades that he's getting. So I don't know if you want to give your son a shout out, but that was heartwarming for me to hear because academics are important.
Big shout out to my son Landon. When I tell you this dude is super sharp, he's a pretty good football player, but what makes me the proudest is just his academic achievements. The dude is super sharp. I'm proud of him. I tell him, hey, the sky's the limit for you. You can go wherever you want to go, do whatever you want to do, and that's what I'm proud of. So he keeps chugging away and he keeps plugging, and I just tell him, hey, when I was coming up, my parents didn't have the foresight to tell me. I was a pretty smart kid, and I got recruited coming out of high school by a lot of Ivy League schools, but my parents didn't know what an Ivy League school was, so they couldn't lead me and guide me and tell me, hey, think about your academics more so than your athletics. And Landon won't have that issue. I keep plugging more academics than football than all the time, but he's a super sharp kid, and I'm proud of him.
That's great.
That's awesome, man. And you wound up in the Athletic Hall of Fame as a Gator great in 2000. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that was a hell of an honor, and you are chosen as number 24 among the 100 greatest Gators in the first century of Florida football.
Thank you.
So you wrote your legacy, and it's really great to see former players, continue to get better. And we didn't talk about this, but life beyond football sometimes for retired athletes is not the easiest thing.
No.
Right?
No.
Not everybody is smart with their money, the planning, and back in the late 80s and early 90s, you weren't getting paid the way, these players are getting paid today. So you really have to make something of yourself. And it seems like you've done that, Lewis. So that's really awesome.
Thank you, guys. I'd love to be back on the show. I'm sorry that we had to cut 30 minutes off, but anytime you want me, Doc, I'm here to hang out with you and Jason.
All right. Now I'm going to hang out with you at Live on a Sunday.
Come on down.
Sounds good. Thanks, Lewis.
All right, Lewis. Have a good one. Thank you.
All right, Jason.
All right. And we're going to continue the show here for another good 30 minutes or so with my man, Jason Cabello.
Yeah, what a good spirit, man. What a
that's such a nice guy.
Positive guy. And you just see it in him,
It's been a long time since I've been jealous of someone. And I'm just going to put this out there because, that's the transparent person I am. But it's been a long time since I've been jealous of someone that has the ability to just light one up once a day, at night.
Yeah. Right?
That's not a knock on recovery.
No, it's not. And that's the whole, don't they say it in Alcoholics Anonymous that the dream of every alcoholic is to drink like a normal person or something along those lines?
Yeah, I just think sometimes that's overlooked. And I think that, we are told sometimes, right, that drugs are bad, okay? And, just don't pick up no matter what. And, life is going to be grand. And what we don't realize is that recovery teaches us how to deal with life. Recovery teaches us, how to deal with the stressors of life without going back to doing what we did. But it doesn't mean that it's not okay to be able to miss what we used to do.
Right. Yoder. But yeah, what happened with me was, I had some pretty serious dental work, probably about this time last year. Shout out to Dr. Frank at Walden Dentist in Austin, Texas. Replaced all my bottoms here. And I had to get bone graft. I had to get, a lot of extractions, and I was in so much pain. And I was in so much pain, and just any kind of relief at that point, that's when I really got jealous of being able to take an opiate for medicinal purposes. And a lot of people in recovery, if they do have major surgeries, will, take as prescribed, be accountable for it. But for me, it's just like it I needed the relief, but I knew how I would feel the day that the pills ran out, and that's what kept me from doing it. The physical pain was, I wouldn't say worth it, but it was worth it to not take that chance in my life, because I've put together a pretty decent life that I could fuck up really easily if I let myself.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to try to be super candid here. I love my life. Okay, love it. I have two beautiful girls who are in my life. I have an amazing career. I have tremendous friends. I have hobbies. I have people in my life that I value.
A
My
podcast.
my podcast, my family's in my life. It's like sometimes I have to pinch myself because my life is so good. But I feel like there will always be a part of me that misses that escape on the balcony at night that Lewis was talking about. And I think that's important to talk about because when I first got clean, my sentiments in my head, and I don't know if you can relate to this or not, but my sentiments were, my life is over. I'm no longer going to have fun. Now,
Yeah.
granted, I wasn't even 21 years old yet. Okay. I got clean 2 months before my 21st birthday. But I thought literally my life was going to end because I put all my happiness in that substance. And that substance, from what I thought and where my mind was, made me who I was.
Right.
I look back to the pre-using years of 12, 11, 10, and I remember that first time I got high, the best way I could describe it is I feel like I fit. And, you hear it said sometimes with people who talk about their history of growing up, whether it was with or without using, that a lot of us never really felt like we quite fit in, although we could play the part and fit in with almost anybody. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
In other words, we're what's the word? Not amphibians. We're chameleons.
Chameleons. Yeah.
Yes, we're not amphibians. We're not frogs hopping along through life, but we're chameleons. So I could talk the talk, I could play the part, I could dress the part, I could play the sport, but I felt lonely all the time.
Right.
And when I got high, that void I had on the inside was fulfilled. And after years of hard work and recovery, only then did I start to get comfortable in my own skin. And I think when we talk about people who are new in recovery, they shy away from recovery because of that feeling of emptiness that they can no longer fill. And they don't give themselves enough time to get to that place where they can start to fill it with healthier stuff. And I know I'm rambling when it comes to that, but I think it's important to talk about.
Well, no, I mean, that was huge for me, and I completely relate because, I mean, unlike you, I got clean at 42 and definitely did not know how to live my life without, the use of substances, just because, I mean, it was my everything. It was my absolute everything. So giving up all that, like, I didn't know who I was really. I didn't know a lot about myself because as we talked, like, I'm not the kind of guy who could do drugs and then keep things together. I could do drugs or I could do other stuff. Like, that's what I've learned in my recovery. And luckily I've chose to do other stuff and put the drugs down, because, but yeah, that feeling of giving away the only thing that gave me comfort, the only thing that I knew how I was going to feel when I was going to do it. Like, I remember the first time I went to go see live music in recovery. I was about maybe like a little bit under a year, maybe about a year. And I went to go see some music, and I just felt like I hadn't felt that awkwardness in so long. Like, I didn't know how to stand. I didn't know what to do with my hands to, like, you know, it was just so awkward, and I was just like, these are the kind of things that I'm gonna have to learn how to do, you know. And now I love it, you know. I went to South by Southwest to a show out here in South by Southwest in Austin recently, and it was amazing. Like I felt so, I don't think I ever felt like so connected to it and like just so focused on it, you know. And it is a new way to live, and that's scary for a lot of people because it's like a security blanket for so many people, especially if you've been using half your life, more than half your life. Once you have to give that up, and they're like, okay. And then not only that, but then it's like, okay, if you're going to go the 12-step route, not only do I have to give this up, now I have to start doing work on myself. What the fuck kind of deal is this? You know, like, I'm not sure that this is what I want. You know, that I think that keeps a lot of people from giving it their all.
Yeah, I mean, you made some good points, and what I heard you say is you this is almost like a do-over, okay? And everything we learned to this point, we almost have to erase and draw a new blueprint for life. And I know that sounds pretty drastic. That doesn't mean that we forget all the things we've been through, because we don't want to do that, right? But it's literally learning how to relive. Or it's literally relearning how to live.
Yeah.
In a productive fashion where we can find happiness, which isn't always easy, okay? Because as human beings, and you could tell me if I'm wrong, but I know I'm not, we're creatures of habit. And we thrive in the familiar. That doesn't translate to we thrive in the healthy familiar. We just thrive in the familiar. So whatever we're used to, Jason, if you had spent 10 years on a farm, okay, from ages 1 to 11, okay, that's 10 years. No, maybe that's 11 years. No, it's 10 years, because if you're 0 to 11 months and whatever, that's a year. Okay. Anyways, if you grew up on a farm, and we're going to just throw this example out there, it's a little crazy, but it's in my head, and you slept every single night in a pile of cow manure from the age of 1 year old to the age of 11 years old, it would be all you know. And it would be your comfort zone. And at age 11, if someone plucked you out of there and stuck you in a king-size bed with a down comforter inside of a house, you would not sleep that night. But the second you got back to that pile of cow manure, you would sleep like a baby. Do you follow me?
Yeah, 100%. I get it. And,
and that's fucking nuts, okay? Because nobody wants to sleep in a big pile of shit. But if it's all you know, it becomes your comfort zone, your safety net, and that's where you're comfortable.
Right.
I worked for years in a maximum security prison. And the inmates that I helped, I was a psychological specialist, okay? That was my title. I was a psych specialist. And the inmates that I helped were in the prison within the prison. It was a supermax facility.
Right.
Okay.
Institutionalized.
Right. So you have, in a prison, you have the general population where you can walk the compound and you have jobs. But if you offend on the actual compound, you get put to confinement, which is like jail within the prison.
Right.
And then if you've done something heinous enough,
protective custody.
From confinement, you get sent to what's called CM, or close management. Okay? Close management was the population I worked with. And these inmates, for years, were stuck in a 9-foot by 12-foot cell with a silver metal bed and a silver metal toilet, no TV, a tiny window, and that's it. And they would get taken out once every 24 hours for an hour at a time to have recreation in a cage. And they would be handcuffed to the shower, and they would go in the shower handcuffed, and there was a little slot, and they would put their arms through, and they'd get unhandcuffed so they could wash their hair and their body, handcuffed again. And day in and day out, this is what they did every single day. And what I noticed was, when it came time for them to be released to the general population, to the compound, where they would get their freedoms back, and I use freedoms in a quotation, but they can go to, the mess hall to eat, and they can work. If they're a landscaper, if they're an electrician, they could get put out on the call out for a doctor's appointment and sit in the waiting room. They could get their hair cut. They could, do things, go on the basketball court, run around, the track. Every time it would come up to be that time where they would get re-released to the general pop, you know what they would do?
Stay them by themselves.
Reoffend.
Oh.
They would do something else that would sentence them to longer times in this little cage. And it took me a while to really figure that out, but it taught me a lot. And I look at people who are in active addiction, and we are living in that little cage. And although we know it could potentially be better out there, although we know it could potentially be better with more freedoms, because it's our familiar and it's what we know, despite how negative it is and how much we hurt ourselves, we choose and make that choice to stay. And I use the word choice as because we know about powerlessness, but in our psyches, in our mind, we make that decision by not getting better to stay in our insanity because it's ours and because it's familiar.
Right. Yeah.
Which this is deep. This is
that's a good point. And then when it comes to recovery, that's the one thing, my sponsor, who you know well, John's story, that was the one thing that changed this time, that I stayed clean. Cause like I told you, I'd been in and out of treatment for 7 years and, wasn't doing something. And then, the one piece of it, the one suggestion that I had taken from my sponsor this time was telling me to protect that recovery. Like I protect my disease. You know what I mean? I protected my using for decades, like that's the only part of my life that I wanted to keep together. So when the shift came and I started, because once I had like 60, 90 days, it was like the longest that I had of like honest clean time without doing some like bullshit from the gas station like Kratom or something like that, which kept me sick for a lot of years. But once I started putting some stuff together and then taking that recovery and then holding that dear and protecting that recovery, that's when it seemed to like grow,
I think, you have a point there. What I try to get across to those people that are seeking help is that this process is exactly what it is. It's a process. And that word implies no instant gratification. Okay. If I tell you, yes, you can do this, but it's going to be a process, more than likely, you're not going to achieve it within a day. Right. You understand? And we get so enthralled with instant gratification as active addicts or alcoholics. Could you imagine if you did a drug and, you're looking for a drug to do and you're down to your last $50 and I'm your dealer and I say, hey, Jason, I got this really great drug. Okay. How much money do you have? You tell me it's $50. I tell you, you're in luck. This costs $50, but you're going to do it and you're not going to feel the effects for 30 days. Are you going to spend your last $50 with me?
No.
Absolutely not.
No.
Unless you're on your way into treatment and it's going to hit you by the time you get out. But no, at the end of the day, the draw that substances have on us that we destroy our lives over is we can change the way we feel in literally a second.
Yeah.
And we know exactly how we're going to feel. There's not going to be any surprises, right?
It's a tough sell.
Well, recovery is that drug. Recovery is that drug that takes 30 days or 60 days or 90 days to hit. And once it hits, you get pink cloud status.
Yeah.
Right.
For 6 years in, I still get not every day. I have some really shitty days, but the good times are way better than I had ever thought they'd be. I thought the best days were behind me when I came into treatment, for sure. So I have a question as an addiction professional, because I have my tenure in going into treatment, and I do work for Recovery Unplugged, but not client facing. as you do, or as some of the therapists do. So what is the actual science, as we're talking about breaking habits or breaking structures? What is the science behind the 28 days? Because I know that there's something behind that, right? Like that it takes like 28 days to break a habit. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, I've heard that before. Listen, the 28 days, it was a movie, right?
I know I've been to treatment 20 times. I've seen it at least 20 times.
Right. What's the name of the movie? 28 Days?
Yeah.
I think it was this magic number that was made up by insurance companies, to be honest.
Oh,
yes,
okay.
there is a number of how many actions it takes to break a habit or to form a new habit. I don't think 28 is the number. I don't think it's ever fair to say, I don't even think 30 days isn't, we have to look at the individual. Okay. Are we looking at somebody who has been using for 40 years straight? Do we really think 30 days of treatment is going to be enough to quote unquote cure that person so they never go back to that substance again? Probably not. Right.
Well,
I think it's dependent on someone's history.
right. But I mean, that's the thing. It's not a cure, but it's enough time to get them away from everyday use to get them into new habits. And then
Agreed.
to
But what's the
be,
follow up?
that's
What's the follow up?
that's the magic pill here. You know what I mean? That's the thing that where so many people, like, once they get out of treatment, or even like say a family member who sends a loved one to treatment thinking that they're going to get a cure, thinking that the second this person gets back, everything's going to be rosy. You don't have to worry about it anymore. You don't have to hide your jewelry anymore. This person is completely changed, and they come back, they go back to same people, places, and things, and relapse or whatever. And then this person thinks that treatment itself failed.
Okay, so there are shitty treatment centers out there.
No,
There are
really?
shitty treatment experiences out there. But 99% of the time, treatment does not fail the person fails the treatment. Okay?
Right. Yeah.
And the biggest telling stat that I've come across, in all these years that I've been doing this, is the best indicator for long-term sobriety is actually length of outpatient treatment, not length of inpatient treatment.
Mm-hmm.
So I do agree that for some cases, inpatient treatment is a must. Okay. There are people who are literally incapable of stopping on their own. They have to be stopped. Okay. They have great things in place here in Florida. They have Marchman Acts, which is a really good tool for somebody who is just not willing to stop.
What exactly is a Marchman Act for somebody who might not be familiar?
So a Marchman Act is a law that was that is state specific here in Florida. If there is a family member or multiple family members that are concerned for a substance abuser, again, this is different from a Baker Act, right? A Baker Act is a 72-hour involuntary hospitalization that's more for psychiatric purposes. The person is a danger to themselves, suicidal, homicidal. That person can be involuntarily hospitalized for 72 hours to get stabilized. And that could be done by police. That could be done by a doctor. More than not, you just call the police and the police will Baker Act that person. A Marchman Act is made specifically for substance abusers. And that person who literally might be killing themselves is just 100% unwilling to get help. So a petition is filed in front of a judge and it's signed off by a couple family members, and that person is served orders to go to treatment. And they're given a choice at that point. They can go to treatment for typically anywhere from 45 to 60 days, or they can go to jail for 6 months. One of the two. So if they refuse treatment, a pickup order is put out and they're brought into jail. So it is a last resort type of thing. That most people who are Marchman Acted are not very happy when they get served those papers. But I've seen, lots of cases of these Marchman Act clients who, after 30 or 40 days in treatment, they're very grateful to their family for doing that. Because at the end of the day, when they're being Marchman Acted, they're not in their right mind. They are
Right.
incapable of making a good decision for themselves. It's almost like giving power of attorney over, right? But the concept behind it, and it's something I always love to say, is that if you bring the body enough times, eventually the mind will follow. And that, right, if you just give this whole recovery thing a shot, then eventually you start believing in what you're doing. That was my case.
Yeah.
I was not Marchman acted, but I did not go 100% willingly to treatment because I knew this was going to work for me this time. But I was intervened on by family and a doctor, and I got tossed into this treatment program, and it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And my life didn't suck as bad as I thought it was going to suck. And I didn't feel as bad as I thought I was going to feel. And I actually started to feel a little bit better, at that 30 to 40 day mark. And I started going to these cult-like meetings. Paula says, just an FYI on the 28 days. Oh, she posted something before that. I think it's a
Yeah,
link.
there's an NPR link on there if anybody wants to read further about the science behind 28 days in treatment. Thank you, Paula.
Okay. But anyways, I got to a place where I just felt like, this is possible. I can do this, much like you said, right? And not even like you said, I'm sorry. Before this show, I was watching the Recovery Unplugged June goals video. And we were highlighting some alumni, people who were talking about how bad it was, and then after going through treatment, how they've really started to believe that they can do this. And there was one girl on there who said, if I can do this, you can too.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the motto I carry with me.
Right.
So
there's that.
With that being said, I would still like once a month maybe to be able to smoke a joint or hit a bong or take a dab or do a knife hit. Like I said earlier, I just to kind of tie in our show from earlier, I think that feeling, as normal as it is, will probably stay with me forever.
Yeah.
I don't wake up every day thinking about it. I don't obsess over it. I don't spend more than 20 seconds in a month probably even thinking about it. But when it's brought up, it's like, oh, that sounds appetizing.
Yeah, well, I had shared this recently. I was at the Recovery Unplugged Memorial Day barbecue out here and got to share my story. And, and I talk about this all the time when I'm working with somebody as a sponsee. I have using dreams almost every single night. Like
Really?
Almost every night, 6 years in. And they are never fun. It's never a great time. It's me at my most desperate, trying to get something, trying to find a way to rip somebody off or getting some fake stuff. It's just every single night I have them. And the one that I had last week, it was so bad that I woke up and I was like, and it takes me a second, but then I realize like where I'm at, and it's like really good to wake up and be like, it was just a dream. And it puts me, you know what I mean? I found a way to like make a silver lining out of it, and it puts me in gratitude, and it puts me to be like, I can't believe that was my life. Like, this is how I felt every day of my life. This is what I was doing every day for my life to like, just to not be sick. I wasn't even getting high anymore. I was just not getting sick. And, that was the best I could do. So thank God.
I think I think that, those using dreams come for a reason. I have not had one in a while. I did have a very vivid dream the other night. And when I woke up, I realized, why I was having that dream. But I watched American Ninja Warrior before bed. It was like, I don't know, 2:00 in the morning. And, this is the show where they do this crazy obstacle course.
Right.
And I had a dream that I was on this American Ninja Warrior obstacle course, except the ramifications of falling. I was not going to go into just a pool of water that was 5 feet below me. I was literally on the side of a cliff.
Oh.
Okay. And I was carrying a client who I was trying to get into treatment. That in real life, I've been trying to get him into treatment. And I'm like carrying this guy, and I'm literally grasping at like these pegs to stick into the rock to climb up this cliff. And I look down and I'm a goner. Okay. And then I woke up. So I was almost as grateful as a using dream to wake up from that dream, and I will not be watching American Ninja Warrior before bed anymore.
Well, let's see if Andrew Sossin will underwrite a Dr. Barry action movie, and we could set that up, and that'll be that'll be the cliffhanger at the end.
Let's go. Literally the cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Holding on and trying to get this client to come with me. I got this. We got this. And no, we don't.
Who would play you if you had the choice in your docudrama? Who would?
Oh man, honestly,
Kevin Hart?
And it would. I'd have to go with Adam Sandler.
Oh yeah, I could see that.
He's like my doppelganger or whatever they call it, but
A doppelganger. Yeah, he's made a strong comeback too. His career
he's
is
got a new
doing
movie out, right?
Yeah, on Netflix. I forgot the name of it, but when he works for, it's sort of like Moneyball, but for basketball. But I forgot the name of it.
Yeah, well, he had a movie come out called Uncut Gems.
Uncut Gems was awesome. I fucking loved it.
And that was like his first role as like a really serious kind of non-Adam Sandler-esque type role, and he pulled it off.
That was an intense film. Everybody who I went with hated it because there's.
I thought it was awesome.
I was like, it was so uncomfortable, and it made me feel so anxious. I'm like, yeah, that's what it was supposed to do.
Let's talk real quick. And I know we got to cut this short here. Last week, I went and saw the new Top Gun in the theaters. I don't know if you've caught it yet.
I have not.
But it's very rare that I look forward, or it's been rare over the last number of years that I've ever looked forward to a movie coming out in the theaters.
Mm-hmm.
It might have had something to do with the 36-year wait for a sequel to come out, but it did not disappoint. It was awesome.
Okay, I'll have to take a look. Was there another volleyball scene in there?
There was another volleyball scene.
Okay,
I won't give too much away if no one's seen it, but I will tell you that do yourself a favor, watch the original before you go if you haven't seen it in like 20 years. I did that like 2 weeks ago, but there's tons of references to the original, but this is like, I don't think I've ever seen a sequel that was better than the original, but this is light years ahead of the original version. So,
wow. All right.
All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed today's show. I want to give a shout out again to Lewis Oliver, if he's going to be listening to himself on our Spotify channel. We are on Spotify. Rhyme and Reason with Dr. Barry is on Spotify, so make sure you follow that. Jason, I want to thank you for coming in on short notice.
Anytime.
Jason is the official co-host of the Toxicology podcast that happens every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern with Mr. Joseph Gordo. I think I said that right.
Close.
And let's give a shout out to Greg behind the scenes for doing a stellar job. And I hope everybody makes it a fucking awesome week. Let's go.